scientist creates a creature using human DNA, only to discover that what she created is capable of something terrifying. So before we get into this nightmare, if you enjoy movie recaps, hit that like button, subscribe to IZLY Recap, and turn on notifications. Now, let's begin. We're introduced to Clive and Elsa, two brilliant genetic scientists who spend their days doing what most people would consider completely insane, creating new life. They work in a high-tech laboratory where they're experimenting with genetic engineering and creating hybrid organisms. And somehow, they're actually getting results. After countless experiments, they successfully create two new creatures, one male and one female. Their goal is simple: use the proteins produced by these creatures to develop new medical treatments that could potentially help millions of people. Sounds great, right? Well, Elsa isn't satisfied, because apparently, creating two completely new species wasn't ambitious enough. She wants to take the experiment much further. Elsa suggests combining human DNA with animal DNA, creating a completely new kind of organism. But there's one small problem. The pharmaceutical company funding their research wants absolutely nothing to do with it. They're already interested in the creatures they've created, but they want Clive and Elsa to focus on extracting the valuable protein from them. And according to the company, that process could take 5 years. For Elsa, that's basically an eternity. She believes they can achieve something much bigger if they're allowed to continue experimenting. But the company refuses. They make it clear, no human DNA. But Elsa and Clive aren't ready to give up. Behind the company's back, they secretly begin experimenting with the human DNA. At first, nothing works. Experiment after experiment fails. Some attempts don't even survive long enough to develop. But after several failures, they finally get a result. The experiment works. They've actually managed to combine the genetic material. For the first time, they have proof that their crazy idea is possible. The plan was supposed to end there. They had proven what they needed to prove. But Elsa isn't satisfied. She takes the genetic material, locks herself inside the lab, and refuses to let Clive in. Clive tries reasoning with her. They argue. He tells her this has already gone too far. But Elsa keeps pushing. Eventually, after a long argument and plenty of convincing, she finally opens the door, and Clive walks inside. At this point, there's no going back. Elsa prepares the human egg, while Clive takes his place at the controls. He knows exactly what they're about to do. They're about to create something the company specifically told them never to make. Elsa gives him the signal. Clive presses the button, and the genetic material is implanted into the human egg. The experiment begins. Days pass, and against all expectations, the embryo develops. It works. They've created a completely new hybrid organism. As the embryo continues to grow, Clive and Elsa try to return to their normal routine. During the day, they continue checking on the company's original creatures, while secretly keeping an eye on their own experiment. But one day, Elsa checks on the developing hybrid and suddenly notices something terrifying. His heart has stopped. For a moment, she just stands there in shock. After everything they've done, they might have lost the creature. Then, the heartbeat suddenly returns. The creature is alive, and somehow continues developing as if nothing happened. That night, while Clive and Elsa are back at home, Clive suddenly receives an emergency notification. The hybrid is being born. Already, they rush back to the laboratory, but the birth doesn't go anything like a normal delivery. Something goes wrong with the machine. Elsa tries to help, but her hand suddenly gets trapped inside. It's almost as if something inside is holding on to her. She struggles to pull herself free, but the machine won't let go. Clive realizes they don't have time to panic. He takes control and manages to free Elsa. Then, the creature finally emerges. It's covered in a strange cocoon-like membrane and looks absolutely nothing like a normal newborn. Honestly, after all the trouble they went through to create it, this thing looks like nature itself hit the randomize character button. Exhausted, Clive and Elsa leave the lab and return home. They plan to come back first thing in the morning. But when they return, Something is wrong. The creature is gone. Elsa searches the room, checking everywhere. Nothing. Then she turns around. The creature suddenly lets out a strange scream and takes off running. Elsa chases after it as it darts around the laboratory, hiding wherever it can. After a frantic chase, Elsa finally realizes something. This isn't just a strange-looking animal. It's intelligent, it's afraid, and it's actively trying to avoid being caught. Before she can fully understand what she's dealing with, Clive arrives, and when he sees the creature running around the lab, he makes a decision. He activates the gas system, filling the entire laboratory with gas. Whatever they've created, they're gonna make sure it never gets out. As time passes, Elsa starts becoming attached to the creature. She gives her a name, Dren. And the more time Elsa spends with her, the less Dren feels like an experiment. She starts treating her like a daughter, feeding her, talking to her, even playing with her. And Dren isn't exactly acting like a normal animal. She's incredibly intelligent, and showing signs of an IQ far beyond what either scientist expected. But Clive isn't impressed. When he sees how emotionally attached Elsa has become, he gets angry. He reminds her that Dren is supposed to be a scientific experiment, not their child. The two begin arguing, and while they're distracted, another scientist secretly tries to enter the lab. Unfortunately for him, Dren notices. Before he can get any further, she attacks him. He manages to escape, only because she is told to stop. Later, Clive goes to meet the scientist. He knows that if the man reports what happened, their secret experiment could be exposed. So Clive tries to convince him to keep quiet, because apparently, when you've created an illegal human-animal hybrid, the next step is hoping nobody tells the boss. But Clive's problems are only getting started. Not long after, his boss calls him in. He delivers some terrible news. Their entire section of the research facility is being shut down, which means Clive and Elsa have a much bigger problem now. They can't leave Dren behind, and they definitely can't take her home like a normal pet. So they need somewhere else to hide her, and fast, because the moment that laboratory closes, their secret could finally be exposed. With the laboratory shutting down, Clive and Elsa secretly move Dren into the basement of the company. They continue monitoring her closely, but Dren is growing at an unbelievable speed. In just a few days, she's already developing far faster than anything they've ever studied. One night, while they believe Dren is asleep, Clive and Elsa decides to have a little adult fun together. But Clive suddenly notices something behind the curtain. Dren is standing there, watching them. Yeah, so much for having a private time. The next morning, the company proudly presents its genetically engineered creatures to the world. But the celebration quickly turns into chaos. Something goes terribly wrong. The female creature suddenly transforms into a male, and the two creatures immediately become aggressive toward each other. A brutal fight breaks out. The scientists desperately try to stop them, but by the time it's over, both creatures are dead. Their boss is furious. She informs Clive and Elsa that starting the next day, they'll be transferred to another department, where they'll also be closely supervised. That means keeping Dren inside the company is no longer an option. That same night, they move Dren to an abandoned farm far away from society. Here, they can keep her hidden while continuing to study her. But while they're packing, Dren suddenly escapes. She disappears into the surrounding area, and soon they find her after hunting down an animal. Then she calmly begins eating it. Honestly, that should have been a pretty obvious red flag. But despite everything, Elsa continues trying to make Dren comfortable. They give her food, shelter, tension. Yet Dren still wants something they can't give her: freedom. One night, after Elsa falls asleep, Clive stays behind with Dren. The two spend some time together, even dancing for a moment. But during their dance, Clive makes a disturbing discovery. He realizes Elsa used her own DNA to help create Dren. And that makes the experiment even more illegal than they originally thought. He confronts Elsa about it, but she claims it was in the name of science. The next morning, Elsa visits Dren with a little gift. Unfortunately, Dren doesn't exactly react the way Elsa expected. She kills the animal, then looks at Elsa with a disturbing little smile. Elsa loses her patience and slaps her. Dren immediately reacts, pinning Elsa to the ground and raising the poisonous needle on her tail as a warning. For the first time, Elsa realizes just how dangerous Dren has become. As Dren moves toward the door, she's suddenly knocked unconscious. Elsa ties her to a table and finally extracts the genetic material the company has been waiting for. When Clive arrives, he's completely horrified by what he's seeing. The experiment has gone far beyond what either of them originally intended. The following day, Clive returns to check on Dren. She innocently jumps and kisses him. He tries to pull away but is drawn in by lust. For a moment, everything feels strangely normal. But then Elsa walks in. She sees Clive with Dren and is immediately shocked. Without saying a word, she turns around and rushes back home. Clive follows her, trying desperately to explain and apologize. They get back home and a heartfelt moment both calm down. The next day, they return to the farm to check on Dren. This time, something is seriously wrong. Dren is extremely sick, and her condition is deteriorating rapidly. She's barely able to move. Clive and Elsa can only watch helplessly, until finally, the creature they secretly created, the creature Elsa had grown to see as a daughter, is gone. Together, they bury Dren, and for a moment, they believe the nightmare is finally over. After burying Dren, Clive and Elsa prepare to leave the farm. But before they can get very far, they're stopped by another scientist and one of their bosses. Apparently, Gavin has already told him about Dren, and now, he's come to take the creature back to the laboratory. But before anyone can explain what happened, a strange animal-like sound suddenly echoes through the area. Everyone freezes. Then, their boss is suddenly attacked and killed. And standing nearby is Dren. Except, Dren isn't dead. She has transformed into a male. The creature watches them for a moment, then disappears into the woods. Gavin doesn't get far either. Dren catches him and takes him away. Clive immediately goes after them, but Elsa warns him that they should turn back. Unfortunately, Clive isn't listening. He continues searching until something suddenly grabs him and pulls him into a pool of water. He disappears beneath the surface. A few moments later, Clive manages to climb back out. He's shaken and barely understands what just happened. Then Dren emerges. The creature immediately goes after Elsa. She runs, but Dren catches her. They begin mating, and for the first time, Elsa looks completely terrified of the creature she once treated like a daughter. Meanwhile, Clive wakes up and quietly sneaks up behind Dren. He grabs a sharp branch and drives it into the creature, but Dren barely reacts. She turns around and attacks him. Elsa sees what's happening and grabs a large rock. She strikes Dren in the head, but then hesitates, and that's all Dren needs. The creature quickly retaliates, using the poisonous needle on its tail to fatally attack Clive. Elsa watches in horror, but she knows she has no choice. She raises the rock again, and this time, she doesn't hesitate. She strikes Dren, killing the creature. The nightmare is finally over, but the consequences don't end there. Some time later, we see Elsa again, and there's something very different about her. She's pregnant, and the final revelation makes everything even more disturbing. The child she's carrying isn't Clive's, it's Dren. After everything they created, everything they sacrificed, and everything that happened at the farm, the experiment may have left behind something far more dangerous than they ever imagined. And that's where Splice comes to an end. If you enjoyed this recap, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next movie recap. I'll see you in the next one.